John Duncan. He was a queer hair I did. It was a day in early June, nae long after the gabs of May, a fair puckle of years syne 'twas. There was a boerige oor folk cutting peat out by until they furie moss. A bonny day, but still calking. It was about the end of the forenoon when all Cornerloon set down his tusker and let out a muckle shout. Look at this! There's a queer like one awa down off the road into the moss. His father gave him a clout across a log to mind his manners, and for he spoke about folk. But we all looked up, and sure enough there was this chiel, a wee kind of crater he was, his trousers halfway up his legs, but with this muckle tall hat firm on his head. He mun be sick in a short while, said ane of the Fermloons. Aye, dressed like that, said Corner. But it's my opinion he's nae expecting a boggy granule fin gan that way. It's nae recht safe down here. You're recht, I says. Tell that loon of yours to go over to show him the safest way out. The loon was sent. Nae more nor 5 minutes later, here's him back, fair out of breath, but near the bursting himself with laughter. Well, loon, did you set the man on his recht road? Yeah, a bit out, says the loon. I come up out of Hughauer by, and here's a all field down in his hunkers in a glaar, at the edge of a bit of dub full of peatbree and glaar. On his knees he was, with his muckle hat on the ground aside him. And he's poking in a dub like he was fishing. Aye, stretching out as far as he could with his stick, trying to reach his yalla floor in the water. I tried to wave to him, but nah, he was over busy with the floor. So I shouts out, "Yemen, I was bidden to tell you would get a better road out this way." The old chiel stood up sudden like and looked round, sound lost his fitting and cowped over into the water. I speered if he was sick of the way out, but he just shook his head and away goes back to fishing in a peat pool with his stick. Nah, said the loon. He's a queer chap, yon. He doesn't want to ken a guid road out, and yonner he is up to his knees in water, working in a peat hole with his stick. The man mun be daft, said his father, and we all agreed. We stood about looking to far the loon had gone, and afore long here's the chiel coming over the top of the brae. Daft recht enough. His claes were clotted in dubs, and he was soaking wet. In the aye hand he carried his muckle hat and some kind of boxy. Files, and thither he was holding this great, long, trailing kind of weed, with a floor on top of it, as if he was holding some kind of treasure. He looked in a gay hurry, but nae sooner had he reached the dry grass at the road's edge than down he gets in his hunkers and starts eating rolls of paper for the boxy. To dry the weed? Aye, the weed. He's still dripping water, but deal the bits he bothered about that. Syne after a while off he gings awa down the road, still soaking. Quid be here, said Corner. I've never seen a sick a feel as yon. Why is he, do we ken? I just shook my head. But it wasn't the last time I saw the manny, by a long chalk. And this time was at the Loch of Durris, when I was out fishing a wee boatie. Here's the same chiel, tall hat and a', at the edge of the loch, peering out of the water. I thought he was looking at me and waved, but no, he was looking past me to where there was a water lily, deep in the loch. Afore I'd time to think that he shouldna, bless me, but was he nae off wi' his bricks and widing out towards it with a fixed kind of look in his face. But as I kent he would, he was seen in trouble with the mud at the loch's bottom, and afore I could shout out, he disappeared aneath the surface. I wasna far off, and rowed over to where he'd sunk. He was coming up, so I grabbed a hold of him by the scruff of his neck and hauled him aboard. What are you doing, manny? But I could see fit, for there was the muckle water lily still gripped tight in his hands as he lay in the boat gasping for breath. I rowed to shore and we got to spicking as he dried himself and halt on his bricks. He told me he collected plants, flowers and weeds and sick like. I asked it for, thinking files it was for medicines. My Auntie Bessie used to hae all kinds of plants she claimed she used to cure folk. Aye, and there was a puckle daft enough to believe her. I was never right sure of them, or her come to that. But no, as Manny proceeded to give me chapter and verse. Aye, he did make use of certain plants for remedies, he said, but mostly he collected plants as a kind of study. That's what he said. He'd specimens, he called them. Oh, a sicht meer nor half the plants you'd find in the northeast of Scotland. I asked it yet if it was he going to do with them. But no, he just keeped them, dried and preserved. He said it was science, that he was fit to call a botanist. I mind him telling us years later he was eens asked by William Mortimer if he'd visited the Loch of Durris, by then well kent for its plants. Aye, says he, and mair nor that, I hae been in. I saw him from time to time after that, and with aye news. I got to like a child too. The mair van a vanuit die kent Charlie Black, a gardener child for the firm nae far for Urim. He look at a queer fish with his trousers turned up halfway to his knees, and his high, muckle-crowned hat set at his own angle in the back of his head. A head that was far o'er big for the rest of him. John Duncan he was called. He was born in 1794 to a peer weaver wife, who was left to bring him up by herself after his father abandoned him. Anne Caird she was called. I didn't ask her muckle about that. His business, nae mine. Mind he was awfu' fond of her. Spak about her always with more feeling than about anything else. He often said how bonny she was and fitness strength she had. Every time we met, though, he'd speak for hours and hours on end about the plants we saw. And I became a bit of an expert myself. He'd speak files about when he was a bairn growing up in Drumlithy and gone to school in Stonehaven. Well, nae exactly. Deal a bit of squeal saw John. He ran wild in the braes around the town, and I said that was how he got his liking for plants. When he was about 15, he was apprenticed to a weaver, a gale native man who made his life a misery. Aye, and nae just him, other folks and was still for making malt spirit and smuggling gin and roch brute that he might have been. After a time, he ran away for the weaver and set up with his mother, and that's when he started reading about plants. Astronomy, too. Johnny mean folk would come. Whenever he asked him the time, he took out a sundial he'd made to consult. Never a watch did he hae. Soon after that, they moved to Aberdeen, and he bid there for nigh on 10 years. He got married and had bairns, but his wife left him. She began more or less openly to, as he said, tak up with other men, and when women yoke at wife, they winna stick. When they dinna hae the right side of that question, they're fairly finished. He became a skilled weaver. He served with a local militia, and he started into learning himself about a manner of thing. He could even read some Latin and Greek by then. Another tea name he had was the Nogman, feeny on queer Greek words he used files. Mind, he didn't get them recht. It took me a while to work out what he meant by Rosie Henderson's. John, I loved his books. He'd save for months to get enough barbies together to buy in that he needed. A whole pound in cost, and it was a fair struggle for a child nae earning mair nor 7 shillings a week. But his passion was a been for the plants he collected, and that he files made into medicines for folks' ailments. He'd grind sneezewort into a powder with snuff and gave it to folk for toothache. I mind him saying to me, This is a cure for toothache. Yet folk will be real ill with their teeth if they'll believe you or me, and they'll ging awa down to Mr. Hay, the druggist's, and pay threepence or 4 pence for what they might get for nothing but fool fingers. Or another time, as we were passing a bit of figwort, he told me how he'd cured himself of an awful painful affliction by means of a mixture drawn out of this plant and some dock leaves, adding with some vim, "Man, it vrocht like a charm. Wouldn't the doctors have made a fine job of me?" But that was just a sideline. His passion was in collecting plants. Elke year him and Charlie Black would ging awa on trips together to find plants, and after Che moved awa, he'd ging awa himself to work at the Hearst in different parts of the country, files to the border, to Glasgow or ayont Banff, and files again awa up past Ben McDooey, just about halfway, forever he hadna collected plants afore. He didn't have any kind of jar to keep things in. Nah, he'd stick 'em inside his muckle hat, held in place by a hunky. For longer plants, he tied them aside a long bit of stick, and that files got him into bother with gamies, because they thought it was a gun. And the words he would come out with, sic crabbit, long, nibbit names that did Gary greet. His ain favourite, I said, and I got him to write this in down for me, was the Linoa borealis, or the twa-flowered Linnea. A bonny pink flower with twa bells till its blossom. He'd a wee bit garden for he planted things he liked, but it wasn't near big enough, so he planted things all the way up the banks of the burn that ran past his house. He'd files be awa a day, and meer nor eens a nacht, making die for mate with his baggie of meal and a crust of loaf. He came back with a bundle of plants, and often with wheat clays and moss-coloured beets. A neighbour brought the news idea that he'd seen John awa in Aberdeen harbour, looking at the ships with a nieve for a gurses. Syne thocht a minute, then added, but Johnny never was like anybody else. He was always eager to make folk tak tent if it he thocht were neglected wild flower. Bonny things, some of them, nae noticed and nae kent. So John would hae an exhibition of them. He did it 2-3 times, making, as folk said, the very first botanical exhibitions ever held in the north of Scotland. This was somewhere around about the year 1850, about 8 years after I first met him. I went to one of them and fair enjoyed it, in particular for he started his speech. Some folk think it botany is a beast, but botany is nae beast. Botany is the science that treats a plants. It was in East again year 1851. His name was getting as well kent as a botanist that he was sent an invite for Aberdeen, asking him to help get started a new natural history society up there, and to bring some of his collection with him to exhibit at the meeting. And he used to come to the mutual instruction class at met nach leaving. Files he'd read out papers he'd written about gardening and astronomy and botany to the folk at winter. I mean, he said in his last thing that bairnies should be teached about fit he called natural history. For, as he said, the very first time that an infant exercises its feet upon the garth or stretches its arms in the open air, it is to chase butterflies or pull wild flowers. He made a point of scriving and making his speeches in English. When he was older, he couldn't get about his muckle, but younger botanist chills would gather plants and bring them to him. Or lang, he grew overall to work at his weaving and had to ging in the parish. But anyways, botanist friends raised a public subscription to help him keep body and soul together. I mean, like in fine the words the chiel east is pertot, saying it is needed doing afore John passed awa for fear in place again and mate, all he could get would be a steen. It was well scrivet. And guid be here, 'twas in a' the paper. The People's Journal was followed, but it was in papers as far awa as Glasgow, and even in London. It was a fair winner. And the babies poor den. Man are grand folk, lords and ladies tea. The Duke of Argyle gave £10, as did Her Majesty herself. Would you believe it? But the thing that pleased Johnny best was a letter he was sent by Charles Darwin, facad himself a fellow botanist. Aye, he showed that in Aberdeen. The sum raised was well over £300. The last time I saw him, he was gay weak. I sat for a while, nae saying nothing by his bedside, and then soft-like asked him if he was sick of me to read a bitty. It would I need to be muckle then, he said, so I read him the 23rd Psalm. That was the last time I saw him. Puckle days later, another friend was visiting and asked if he'd any message for me. John just said, just tell him I'm dead, and said forby he wanted his last resting place to be marked by een of nature's rough stains. He did all planned out down to the floors to be sent by his grave. But I was told that at the last, when his nurse was happing a blankets round his all head, his heart went back eens meer to his mother's house in Stonehaven. Recht oor all the memories of meer nor echte long years. And hardly able to speak for greeting, he said, "Say my mother is today to me."